Welcome to Here for the Gear. I'm Jeff. I'm sure you've seen numbers like 5.1, 6.1, 5.12, 7.14, and you're thinking, what do those numbers all mean? In this video, I'm going to explain to you in detail what those all mean, how to recognize those, how to break those down, and things like that. So make sure you stick around, click on like and subscribe, and let's get to it. So first of all, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about mono. Now what mono is obviously like monorail. It's a single channel, one channel. So everybody has seen the old picture of the Victrola record or the talking machine with the dog listening to it on the turntable right here. Now what mono is just simply one channel, and every speaker has its own individual channel right here. So that's exactly what that is. The next step up is two channels. Well, two channels is stereo, and everything like radio transmissions, CD, cassettes, all that, albums like LPs, those are all stereo. So what stereo does is it has left and right channels, and that way, you know, especially like back in the 60s and the 70s and stuff like that, you would hear them experiment a lot with things going from the left and the right. You'd hear stuff like and they'd pan around and stuff like that. Well, you couldn't do that with mono because, I mean, you just had everything on one channel right in front of you, or right, you know, it was just right there. So stereo really helped you out a lot with that. Well, with the invention of soundbars and stereo receiver, well, not stereo receivers, but actual surround sound receivers, now we have the inclusion of multiple channels. So soundbars, what they do is they have three channels in them. You have your left channel, your right channel, as well as your center channel. So now you have three channels. So as well as if you look at the back of a stereo or a surround sound receiver, you will see the outputs like in this picture right here. There you can see all the outputs right there for the left, the right, and the center. And that is where your speakers will plug into. Now this is just for the front part of your setup. Now the next stage up right here, now this is something that a lot of people, unless you're a real audiophile, probably aren't really going to know a whole lot about. The next stage up is 4-channel. Now 4-channel kind of came and went by the wayside. This is where you had what was called quadraphonic. Now quadraphonic, it doesn't have a center channel. What it does is it has your left channel and your right channel in the front, and then it has your left channel and your right channel in the back. And what quadraphonic was is it was a special format of LP at one point. And you had, this is going to really, my audiophile friends are going to love this. And if you're an audiophile, make sure you click on like and mention it in the comments. What they did is they would release orchestras and stuff like that on these LPs. And they had 4 channels on these. And they were a lot higher sample rates and stuff like this. And they sounded really cool because they were in 4 channels. Well, what happened was back in the 90s, they came out with a new format war, and it was Super Audio CD by Sony and DVD audio, and these things also had 4-channel. And what happened with that was Pink Floyd re-released The Wall. And I mean, it sounded sick, insane, awesome, cool, because you would hear money and time and stuff like this. And in money, you would hear cha-ching, cha-ching, and it was like on all 4 channels all around you. And they were doing this because it was originally recorded in quadraphonic. I mean, it sounded just amazing. All right, now past 4, we're going to be getting straight into digits, so let me explain how this works. It's really pretty simple. You're going to be seeing something like 5.1.2. The first digit is the floor level speakers, the second number is the subs, and the third are ceilings, upfirings, or you're doing something else with channels. So you can explain this by adding the first and the third numbers, like 5.1.2, or 7.1, because you simply added that 5 and 2. All right, now 5-channel is the foundation, the absolute I mean, the lowest starting point for a true surround sound system. Now, you can have either a soundbar based 5-channel surround sound system, or you can have a receiver based surround sound system. It really doesn't matter which direction you go. It's just a receiver based. You're going to obviously have more power, as well as with a receiver based, you're going to actually have to run speaker wires to the speakers, whereas a soundbar, you can have some will be wireless, but you will still have to have power ran to them, so they'll have to plug into actually outlets, so they're not true actual satellites. I mean, there are some that actually will run on batteries, but they'll have to have batteries replaced, and they're not really going to be as powerful. It really just kind of depends on your scenario, on which one's going to work best for you. I've always been a receiver fan myself, but again, it kind of depends on, I mean, if you're in an apartment, you can't really modify the building and stuff like that, so you might and you don't want to have wires all around or inside the space, so you might have to go with the soundbar setup. But you know, if you're in a home and you don't mind doing a little bit of work inside the room and stuff, you know, a receiver might be more kind of the way you want to go. It kind of depends on which route you want to take, and it's just I've always liked receivers myself, but a 5-channel is the way you're going to, the absolute foundation, and you're going to have a center, you're going to have your front twos, and then you're going to have your rear channels, and that's going to be, and then your subwoofer, obviously your 0.1. Now, I'm not going to really talk about subwoofers a whole lot, but that's the basics of a surround sound system. And then the next step up from a 5-channel is a 6-channel. Now, 6 is not really used a whole lot. That's going to be the DTS ES codec, and what that is you have your center, your right and your left, and then you have your center in the back, and then you have your left and your right back there as well. But again, that's a format that kind of came and went. It really didn't pick up a whole lot, but it is there. So that's what a 6-channel is based off of. Your next format is, or the next number up is, it really jumps from the 5 to the 7. Now, 7 channels, you have 7, which is actually 5.1.2, and what you're doing there is that 0.2 channel, you have your 5 channels, which is the ones that are all the way around you, and then you have those 2 extra channels. Now, those 2 extra channels, they can be either wide channels, they can be extra up-firing channels on your speakers up front, they could be actually ceiling-mounted channels, or what you can do is, if your receiver has the ability to do this, what you can do is you can run extra wires out of what are called assignable channels. And what you do is, this also depends on your speakers. Some speakers have 2 inputs on them, and you can run what are called bi-ampable speakers, and you can run extra power to the towers, and you will have, your towers have 2 cones over here. So this one runs off this channel, this one runs off this channel, so they're running off independent amplifiers, and you're running just more power to the tower. I love how that rhymes, but that's what you're doing there, and that's how you're getting more amplification to the tower on that speaker. So, and that would be running a 7 point or a 5.1.2, because these 2 channels right here are getting extra power from the receiver because you're assigning those. All right, now we have 9 channel, which is actually 7.1.2. So now we have our wides, and then we have our one set of heights also. So now we're getting the best of both worlds. I mean, we're just adding more and more speakers here. So we've got our fronts, we've got our center, we've got our wides, and we've got our backs, and then we've got one set of heights up here also, or whichever way you want to do those as well. So I mean, you're getting true downfiring speakers. There are also some soundbar setups that will run 9 7.1.2 or 7.1.4 is what they're actually, they're 5.1.4 is what they are setups. But what they're doing is they have a speaker that is firing kind of like in this configuration. It's got one speaker firing outwards and one speaker firing upwards. And what it does is it reflects off the ceiling and then uses that to project back down to you and give that Atmos projected sound effect is what it does. So I mean it's there, but it's not actually true, whereas a true Atmos sound is actually mounted in the ceiling coming back down towards you, so you don't get that, because technically there would be a little bit of a delay. It's only a couple of microseconds, but it is still there, so that's how that works. I've got a link to one of those setups below as well, so that's kind of how that works. And then the next setup is 11 channels, which 11 channels is actually 7.1.4. And now, I mean, you are not missing any channels at all. I mean, you've got everything around you. You've got your everything on the ground. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 8, 9, 10, 11. So you've got 4 in the ceiling, and then you've got 7 on the floor, and that's what gives you 11 channels. And then you've got one subwoofer. Now you could, with a receiver that size, you could have a second subwoofer over here to give you different subwoofer effects if you wanted to. And I mean that's really about the that's the king size setup right there. Now there is one setup that's even higher in speaker count than that. Like I said, that 7.1.4, that's actually going to be Dolby Atmos and DTS. Those are the codecs that run through that. The one that's actually higher up than that is the 13 channel or 7.1.6. And what it is for the Aura 3D, and it's not used hardly at all at home. It's got a couple of speakers that are, I mean, almost never touched. It's got one speaker that's, I mean, straight overhead. Then it's got like 3 up here in the front and then 2 on the side. And the reason it's got the one overhead is so that way it gives you an effect of, like a sound effect of something going over from here over the top of you over to here, or it can go over here like this and then pan up to the front. But again, it's not really heavily incorporated in films or in any anything like the DTS or the Atmos is. Not saying it's not cool, but now you can get some receivers actually that will incorporate up to 15 channels, and that way you could have, if you wanted to be wired for the Aura 3D setup that does have the one up here, as well as the Atmos channels that have those up there, and then you would just, depends on which input you're using or what media you're watching, you could just have those, and you would simply have some speakers that weren't active at some times. But I mean, you would need to have like a media room or something like that to really invest that kind of cash into. All right, I know that was a lot to take in. I tried to keep it a little on the medium side like I do my ribeyes, so it's not too difficult to chew. You know, unless you have a dedicated home theater room, you're probably not going to want to spend the cash on like that 15 channel monster to run the ultra number of channels. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's a real beauty to look at. I've got a link down here below if you want to check that thing out, you can. For me, I mean, I just stick around the 7 to 9 channel receiver. I've got some links to those as well. Or if you wanted to go with a soundbar setup, you could do that also. And those even support the 8K pass-through. So, I mean, if you wanted to pass through 8K signals once those start coming available, or upscale to 8K, if you have an 8K TV, you could do that as well. So you're all set to go with that. I mean, they have some really nice 8K receivers out right now. If you found anything useful in this video, make sure you click on like and subscribe, and follow me up for the next video. Thanks a lot. Have a good day.